Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's last post ceremony. My name is Craig Burrell, and joining us today from the Australian Army is Warrant Officer Class 1, Kim Owen. We warmly welcome the members of the Royal Australian Signals Association. The association is here to commemorate the service of all signallers who have served in communications, from the early beginnings in 1869 in New South Wales and Victoria as a small torpedo and signal corps, to service during the First and Second World Wars, and the subsequent conferring of the title by His Majesty King George VI to become the Royal Australian Corps of Signals. Since that time, the Royal Australian Corps of Signals has served in all operational areas, including Korea, Malaya, Borneo, Vietnam, Cambodia, East Timor, and the Middle East. We thank you for your service. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. We acknowledge the members of RSL and Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria, and RSL Queensland, who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection by visitors to the memorial. If you are able, please stand and join in singing the National Anthem. Please be seated if you can do so. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn their loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the hearts of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection.
Today, we remember and pay tribute to Sapper Frank Gilbert Cook. Frank Cook was born on the 1st of June 1889 in Badajini near Benalla in northeastern Victoria, the son of Frederick and Maria Cook. His parents had immigrated to Australia from England in the 1850s, where they met and married in 1873. Settling in the small rural town, the Cooks owned and ran the local store. They also began a family, Frank being the 8th of 12 children. When he was still a young boy, the family suffered twin tragedies, losing Alan and Arthur in infancy in 1895 and 1897. Frank and his siblings attended Badajini State School. The family was actively engaged with the Methodist Church, participating in Sunday school and church functions, in which Frank and his sisters would sometimes perform recitals. As he grew into a young man, Frank left home to attend continuation school in Melbourne. He also gained military experience as Sergeant Major of the school's senior cadets. Later, he was employed as a clerk and an accountant at the Commonwealth Audit Office in Melbourne. He was living at Moonee Ponds in the city and still at the Audit Office when war broke out in August 1914. Frank enlisted with the Australian Imperial Force on the 14th of August 1915 at the age of 26. Initially made a sergeant due to his pre-war militia experience, Frank spent the first 10 months of the war in Australia at recruit training depots in Melbourne and Seymour, and attended training schools at Broadmeadows and Duntroon in the Federal Capital Territory. Eventually, he was assigned to reinforcements for the 38th Infantry Battalion and departed Melbourne on board the troop ship Runic on the 20th of June 1916. Frank suffered from measles on the sea voyage, but had recovered by the time he arrived in England on the 10th of August. In November 1916, he was transferred to the artillery, and then 2 weeks later to the Australian Flying Corps, becoming a cadet and beginning instruction at the Royal Flying School and Military Aeronautics in Reading. But due to an injury, by August 1917, he had returned to his old unit. Still seeking a different challenge, Frank asked to be demoted to private so he could join the Signals Engineers. This was granted, and after training in Shefford for a further 3 months, he was sent over to France, where he joined the 3rd Field Artillery Brigade's signal subsection before Christmas of 1917. Frank was in France as the war climaxed in the spring of 1918. At the end of March, the Germans launched a series of offences to try and force an end to the war. Desperate days followed as the Allies were stretched to breaking point, but by the summer of 1918, the Australians were holding the line on the Somme, protecting the vital town of Amiens. Artillery was key to the defence, and the guns relied on signallers to maintain lines of communication. That was Frank's job, and sometimes it took him into harm's way. On the 15th of June 1918, he was hit by a shell, probably long-range German counter-battery fire. Frank suffered severe wounds to his face, neck and shoulder, and was taken to a casualty clearing station and then to No. 6 General Hospital at Rouen. But he died of his wounds there on the 23rd of June. He was buried at St Sever Cemetery Extension on the banks of the River Seine. He was 29 years old. When word of Frank's death reached home, the family was devastated. His elder sister, Lily, voiced a touching tribute to her little brother. "We longed for your return, Frank. We wanted to clasp your hand, but God has willed it otherwise. We will meet in a better land." His name is listed on the Roll of Honour on my right amongst almost 62,000 Australians who died while serving in the First World War. His photograph is displayed today beside the pool of reflection. This is but one of many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Private Frank Gilbert Cook, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them. Lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozieres or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. We thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial, and we wish you all a very good evening.